Hello and welcome back to the Handstandcast with me, Emmet Lewis, and my co-host Mikael Christiansen. How are things going, Mikael?
It's the fucking thing is picking up garbage. Now it's going better. Yes. How are things going? I can't complain. I guess just came back from Turkey. Spent 2 months there at TADAH. For those of you who don't know what TADAH is, it's a artist habitat in like couple of 1 hour and something from Antalya, Turkey.
Yeah.
And it's out in the middle of nowhere. It is extremely beautiful. And yeah, I was there volunteer working and working with some construction work, keeping some chickens, picking up some eggs, carrying a load of garbage on the construction site, and so on. How about you,
Awesome.
Emmet and Lewis?
Yeah. Well, I'm stuck in Ireland as usual. We've got a dog, which is I keep saying this, I think, but
Yes.
yeah, dog is awesome. Our dog has grown. Check this. When we got him at 10 weeks, he was 5.5 kilos. He is now 17 weeks, 17 and a half weeks about, and he is 14.3 kilos.
Solid piece of dog.
Yeah,
How large will he get?
We don't actually know because he's a Bernese crossed with a Samoyed. So Bernese get like big. Samoyeds don't get that big. They look bigger than they are because they're super fluffy. So Bernese can get up to 50, 60 kilos. Samoyeds do 25. So we're kind of banking on about 35. But
That's going to be a big fluff though.
Yeah, big fluff. It's kind of like, he's kind of handy because he hasn't got as fluffy hair. It's kind of interesting because he's black and white. And the white hair is the Samoyed hair and it's got like the double coat. Then the black hair is more like the Bernese hair, what doesn't have the double coat. So he'll be intermittently fluffy. So it's cool. A bit easier to groom, which is always nice. But
I've just seen the pictures. I can't wait to meet him one day. He looks like an absolute glorious piece of
dog. He's puppies go through this phase when they're teething, where our dog is replaced with a fucking land shark, and he's just constantly. It's gotten better over the last couple of weeks because we've just been ruthlessly training him. But it's just like there was a phase when me and Elisa were both like, because he'd grab on. He wasn't biting hard, but it was persistent all day. And he'd just grab onto your hand or something and then kind of scrape it. So we ended up with a lot of scratches on our arms. You go into shop, you wouldn't really notice. But then people would be looking on like, oh my God, does this person need help? Or, kind of random bruises as well. Like the teeth give little bruises that kind of look like injection marks as well. Like that bruise. So it's like going around like we're the two people from Dublin down in the countryside now, where anyone in the countryside in Ireland just assumes anyone from Dublin is a heroin addict. So we're not really helping
with
our
good
cause.
reason. I mean, you should go back to fucking Temple Bar and you'd fit right in now.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it was I was up there yesterday. I actually got a new tattoo. Oh yeah, by the way, everyone, we've had a request for a couple of people asked to do another Ramblecast, so we're doing a Ramblecast this week.
This is a Ramblecast.
Yeah, Ramblecast. So we're just going to talk about what's going on with us and a bit of other stuff, give you a hint of some stuff coming up, and just talk around the topic. There's no real handstands, but I'm sure we'll talk about something.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about handstands, but like basically this episode is going to be like the intro to our episodes, except for an entire episode.
It's one intro. It's intro to the rest of the season for the rest of the year, basically. So I was up in Dublin yesterday where I just got a new leg tattoo. So I spent 9 hours getting stabbed. Anyone knows who it was basically 9 hours of lining, and anyone who knows tattoos and lining, you'll understand how much that sucked. It was kind of as people probably guess, I have a lot of tattoos, and it was the most lining I've done in one session. I was like, it's the first time I've had a shock reaction from being tattooed, where like I came home, got bus back down to Wicklow. By the time I got home, I was destroyed, cold, having shakes, everything, blood sugar crashed, obviously. It was insane. It was like, never really, like, even the dog, when he got super excited when I came in, I was playing with him for a bit, but then it got too much. It almost caused like a panic attack, which obviously, I don't get them, but
no, it's super interesting.
It's kind of, it was very super, like, from an outside perspective, it was very interesting to go through something like that, where I'm like, this is, obviously I deal with other clients, other people might have anxiety issues, and when they say, it's like, this is literally what they talk about when they're saying, "Oh, I'm having an attack." So it's kind of interesting for, I suppose, the empathy point of view.
Yeah,
Like, oh,
yeah. I've had one situation where something like that. I mean, it didn't happen, but I felt, or at least I think that I felt the onset of one, and
yeah,
it was in a completely like stupid or like dumb kind of context where there wasn't a real problem, but I could feel that my kind of hormone system was starting some sort of yeah, like panicky type uh, feedback loop, which I was
yeah,
able to stop because my problem was extremely simple. I was about to get seated on an airplane about like a couple of years ago,
yeah,
and I had a really tight jacket on, and there was this person sitting next to me, and I had to get this jacket off because like it was a bit too tight, it was uncomfortable. And I stand up and I'm going to take it off, and like your arms are kind of stuck, you can't really get them around your body and like all that. And it just started this kind of loop in my chest. This is kind of like uncomfortable, sort of like very
yeah,
low key. I hadn't reached 5% yet, but you could really feel that like, oh, if this thing goes overboard, it's going to going to cause like an extremely uncomfortable kind of panicky sensation. And yeah, I've never either had a panic attack, so I'm not entirely sure if this is how it feels, but it like from an empathy point of view, like it at least gave me like what I think is an insight into, okay, maybe that's how it starts. And like I could already feel it was really like disgustingly uncomfortable, but it was irrational because all I needed to do was just like wiggle a bit, and then the jacket was off, problem was solved, and I didn't like the feeling subsided. But yeah, like yeah, just I think it's a good thing to at least know how people experiencing those things, because yeah, it's a real thing for a lot of people. So
yeah. It's definitely, yeah. It was kind of very interesting to see like the feed. Like, obviously, mine wasn't mentally generated. That obviously people can go. The thought process kicks off a visceral reaction, and that kind of feedback loops it. But even just like from the, yeah, from whatever kicked off physically, then the breathing started to go weird, and then the breathing kicked off more of the physical visceral reaction. You can just see how quite easy it would be. Like, I was just lucky, partner just got the dog away from me quick, and then I was able to just go calm down by myself. But you can just see how like, oh, it'd be quite easy if the trigger was a mental process, then or a situation that you couldn't extricate yourself from. You could see how, oh shit, that would have like just kind of, I don't know, snowball rolling down the hill. So yeah, very can appreciate it now, or appreciate that it's given me like, oh, this is the thing people talk about, and I've actually felt it. Versus like, you know, obviously empathize with people, but it can be very difficult to empathize with someone unless you've kind of gone through something similar. So
definitely.
that was quite nice. Not nice at the time, but it's nice. Obviously, it's just me being into this kind of stuff when I'm a coach and go, okay, cool. Now I can really empathize with the next person who goes, oh, I couldn't do this because of blah. So that was kind of, yeah, interesting. So
We actually had like I started a round of the anthropology courses again, and I was going through the lectures I'd missed
yeah,
yesterday, and he was talking about the kind of I can't remember the details now, so I'm not going to try to kind of paraphrase him, but like it was basically talking about kind of the various kind of like these types of triggers of anxiety and things like cross culturally in terms of like non-Western traditional medical science look at it, but how it's like culturally been dealt with within various practices and so, or like various cultural and religious practices and so on.
yeah,
And yeah, how it's a visceral physical state that you somehow can get into, even though there is no at least seemingly visible thing doing it to you. Because I mean, as in your situation, I mean, you're not afraid of your dog, but there was maybe too much going on in the
yeah,
body at that given time, which just made it make like a weird response that it wouldn't have even if you were like just 1% below the level of excitation or like level of whatever in the body, you would have reacted completely differently. But then you're there, and then that's what happens.
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely like that multiple compounding factors kicked in, I suppose, or like multiple things going on. Or yeah, just interesting. Basically
Yeah,
all
like,
interesting.
so now this is a psychology and psychiatry podcast, and we are already experts, as you know. So take everything we say completely literally and just trust us 100%.
100% quackery free.
100% quackery free.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of that going on. What else have I got going on? Can I pimp my own podcast? I've got a new podcast I started, Bendability, which is kind of focused mainly on flexibility stuff and possibly less rambling. Though maybe there's room for rambling, solo rambling. I've had a request or from one of the team members to interview Handstand Factory Emmet on bendability. So I might do that. That could be kind of fun. Yeah,
that's a good one. Emmet interviewing Emmet inside his own, like you can basically make like Emmetception, some sort of like fucking transcendental Emmet religion here.
I like that. I think we should start a religion. We could like combine everything. We got TADAH, so we could like start our commune there. And yeah. Speaking of TADAH, actually, we are going ahead with our retreats, which are hosted at TADAH. I think there's a couple of spaces left. There's not many, but if you want to come train with us, do check out all the details are on our website, handstandfactory.com, obviously. So that's going to be fun. Kind of, yeah, fuck Corona.
Yeah, holy shit, imagine, Emmet, we're going to teach in person again. We're going to suck so bad. We're going to be like, oh, blah, 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 forgot how to speak. Oh, shit, too many people in the room. Don't know what to do. We're just going to take like a direct flight right out of the country.
No.
Like, but then again, TADAH is going to be so nice by that point that like people won't care if we teach or not. They're just going to be, oh, fuck them. Here is super nice. Bunch of hammocks. Nice place to handstand. Those pieces of shit can just get out of here.
No, it's just the secret. Is just we're just going to be a week of chest to wall handstands. That's all you're going to do.
The big secret.
No other teaching. We're giving away all our secret teaching. We say don't do chest to wall all the time, or don't do it excessively. But actually, we're just going to work everyone up to 10 minutes chest to wall over the course of a week.
Yeah,
just not have to interact.
Yeah, if you don't manage, we're just gonna like either disown you or give you copious amounts of drugs until you manage.
Yeah,
that is the big strategy.
Yeah.
And now I said it, and now it's on internet, and I am ready.
We're just going to get a load of people turning up expecting us to be handing out meth, and we'll feel like, sorry guys, we're actually doing real training. I don't know. Maybe
it's going to be cool though. I mean, teaching again in person, I can't remember. Like, when was the last time I taught a workshop? I don't remember if I did any after the retreat in 2019. Maybe that was even the last one I ever taught before COVID. No, wait a second. Yeah, maybe I did one in November after that. 2019.
Yeah, I think the retreat was
maybe the right one.
Was the last one for me as well, because like that was the thing. We booked the retreats, and then we decided, okay, we're going to take 6 months off doing the normal workshop schedule and stuff, and then then Corona kicked in, and like, oh well, those 4 months before Corona kicked in, and then now whatever 18 months into this madness, and so 22 months of not being in person workshops.
It reminds me, like, Emmet, do you know if I ever told a fucking story about the suitcase on the podcast? I keep telling that fucking story, and I have no idea if I told it here or not.
The suitcase in the airport story.
The rage, yes. The Omega rage.
You can tell
I told that?
I don't think you've told it. I think you should tell it, and then I can add on my
I
third-person view of
apologize
it.
to those of you who have heard a fucking story before, because I never remember, and then I'm just an annoying bastard who tells the same old story again and again and again.
It's okay. It's a good story.
Here goes. So it was before the last retreat. It was in September 2019. I was in Hong Kong, and I'd just been teaching at Tribe, a gym there, and so I go to the airport in the morning. I need to go to Antalya, like, to Handstand Factory, to the retreat, because I need to teach there, of course. So I'm there at the airport, and then I'm going to check in shit, and I have a suitcase, and the guy behind the counter just tells me, oh, yeah, you're going to Turkey? Yeah, you need a visa. And I'm like, visa? I'm Scandinavian. It's you never need that to go to Europe. And he says, oh yeah, you need like it's quick. You need go to this website, sign up, no problem. I'm okay, fair enough. So I go to the website, and like it's kind of like a tourist visa thing, which like it takes you 2 minutes to just click a couple of buttons, then you need to pay. So I try to pay with my Norwegian card, doesn't work. I try to pay with my Swedish card, doesn't work. I call my friend Stephanie, who in Hong Kong, who was the one getting me there, and says, hey Steph, like the card doesn't work. Can you think you could help me cover it just so I can actually check in and get out of here? So she says no worries. She tries with her card, tries with her second card, tries with UnionPay, the Chinese payment system. None of them works. I started getting really stressed because I need to get on that flight. So she calls me again and like, yeah, I'm gonna call Teddy and the other like co-owner of Tribe, and he also tries with a bunch of cards, nothing works, and I'm getting really fucked there. And I was wondering, like, I needed to get into my internet bank, the Norwegian internet bank, to see if I had any money on this card. And like I'm pretty stressed out. I'm sitting in front of the counter on a bench, and I start like rummaging through my backpack for there is this little like electronic chip thing. You get a code to log into the internet bank, and I rummage through my backpack, can't find it. I go over to the counter. I ask the guys like, hey dude, can I have my suitcase back, which I'd given him, but they hadn't sent it down the track yet. He gives me the suitcase. I go over and I'm starting to get really fucking stressed and like nervous at this point. So I start pulling on the zipper of the suitcase, and it's stuck. And I'm like, I'm a bit angry at this point. So I pull a bit hard, and blam, the fucking zipper just explodes. Luckily, it was like the fabric on the side of the zipper, so like I could still close the suitcase, but it ripped, and like I was furious at this point. Like I'm rummaging through the thing, I can't find the goddamn little chip, and I'm again like, okay, it must be in my backpack. So I'm going to open my backpack, the zipper jams, and I pull really hard. The entire fucking backpack explodes and just like tears into two pieces. Like no way I could close it again after that, but luckily it was my hand luggage. I go through, I rummage through the luggage, finally find the fucking chip. Super nervous. Shit, I have 40 minutes left. Open the computer, push some buttons to make it go through the login screen. It freezes up, and holy fuck, I was furious at this point. I smack my computer a little bit too hard, not very smart. Bam, black screen. Good night. Sayonara. Fucking computer broke. And I'm sitting there. I can't check in. I can't reach anyone. And I tried calling my mom, but it was 4 a.m. at home. So like nothing could be done. And I still hadn't checked into the fucking flight. And the guy behind the counter sees that like there is a guy having an absolute meltdown, tearing his under his luggage in front of him. And he goes like, sir, you can probably just go through and try to do the check-in when you get to Moscow instead, because I had the connecting there. And I was like, motherfucker, why didn't you tell me? So I run through, I fly to Moscow. I call my mom, and because she was awake by then, and she tries, and it just magically works, of course. So I'm
Mom saves the day. Always. Mom saves the day.
Always, yeah. Mom saves the fucking day. I'm a little bit more relaxed, but still, I just full of like fury hormones because like I've been so goddamn stressed. Didn't sleep on the 10-hour flight either, of course. Then I fly to Turkey, and we land there, and I meet Emmet and Helgi. And we were gonna go, like we were on one terminal. We need to go to the other one, and instead of taking the bus, we decided to walk for some fucking reason. And it's like
we couldn't find the bus.
We couldn't. Okay, that's why.
We were at the terminal, but we were at the wrong terminal, so we had to go.
Yeah.
Is that the time we stayed overnight in the hotel?
Might have been. I don't remember. But like we had to walk like pretty fucking far.
Yeah.
So like it was super warm. I was really sweaty and disgusting and sleep deprived and fucking battle fury still from the fucking thing. And then we start walking, and we walk. It's really far, really, really hot, and we're walking along this like long asphalt road. And then, of course, one of the wheels of my fucking suitcase jams up. So like there is like a rubber ring around the plastic wheel. The rubber ring had split. It jammed the wheel, so it was just dragging along the wheel. So I turn the suitcase, so I turn it kind of on the long side, and I roll it there for a while. Blam! Another fucking wheel jams up, and like I'm just pulling the suitcase. The wheel just falls off, and I'm just like dragging the fucking suitcase, like it's just grinding on the side of the fucking suitcase, like the plastic, and I was like marching forward in this insane fury. Like I was so done by that point. Everything just fell apart. Ruined the suitcase in 2 ways. Ruined my fucking backpack. Destroyed my computer. It was so fucking dumb.
Yeah, me and Helgi were walking behind Mikael. We're walking like in a line, and then slowly it starts breaking. We see it raging, so we start like letting him storm ahead, and you slowly see the suitcase disintegrating, and then it's pulling it along the ground, leaving a plastic like skid mark from like the suitcase. So I think he almost wore a hole through the plastic of the suitcase. Yeah. So you're just dragging it. It's good sled workout.
I was so sweaty and fucking just out of my mind. And then I remember for like 3 days after, or like I mean not 3, but for 2 days afterwards, like whenever some like small nonsense would happen, like of course I wouldn't get angry because I knew that like there was nothing to be angry about, but you could just feel that kind of like your entire body just reacts a bit stronger to just a little negative thing, and you're like, okay, no, I'm not angry now, so just relax the fuck out. It's like that was just such a fucking situation. Yeah, this is great Ramblecast material, isn't it?
Good, yeah.
Helvetes drit now my
mic throwing his mic around the room.
Huh?
Yeah, throwing your mic around the room.
Yeah, rage.
Yeah. I think the funniest thing as well is like you were fuming red, sweating, heavy breathing from the drag and the walk, and then we were meeting outside the terminal to meet all the other guests for the retreat to get on the bus. I think you threw your suitcase across the thing. So that's the first introduction to all the people goes like,
did I?
Yeah, you threw your suitcase. You're like, Helvete Sosa, Satan das, something Norwegian swear wordy, and then you're just like, hi everyone. It's like, this is Mikael. You'll be trapped in a retreat with him for a week.
Absolute psychopath.
Yeah, you got it together.
It was certainly a thing. I think that is one of the most kind of frustrating such situations I've ever been in. Even though like there was no real problem, but like I mean that was, I guess, more the issue of it, just like a bunch of small niggles just like stacked on top of each other, and you just were not able to deal with your own shit.
Yeah, it's that
hilarious.
Yeah, it's that thing of like cumulative niggles. Cumulative, like it's one of the things I deal with a lot with sort of one-to-one clients is like cumulative stress. And it's, you know, we look at the program, the training program stuff, and you go, oh, well, that's training program is a stress and you have to recover from it, obviously, because we're trying to train the body. But then you got like what's going on in work, what's going on in family life, like this year has been, for me as a coach, has been the year where I've had the most amount of injuries ever. And it's very like, it's just, you know, they're all like generally joint stuff. It was very like, it was really weird because like I was once kind of Rona kicked in and I was like, okay, we're in it for 2 months kind of thing. I was like, I dropped everyone's training volume a good bit just to go, okay, I know everyone's going to be stressed. And even then it was like the amount, like particularly with my more advanced people who are like, you should be prepared. I know like I've trained you for like a year or two at this stage. I know what your body's capable of. I know how much like volume tolerance you have. And they were just like, oh, breaking or inflammation or everything, even if they outwardly would be saying stuff like, oh, I'm not stressed, or, you know, it's going fine, or other stuff. Yeah. But I think a level of cultural, I think society would have been one of the things. It's like, what's happening? We don't know. Everything's changing day by day, constant onslaught by the news or people talking about it, or social isolation. Everything just became a bigger stress than bodies could tolerate. So it was kind of, it was very frustrating for a lot of people training wise, because obviously training for a lot of people can be an escape, but it's just like, oh, my training, I can't do the training I want to do because, you know, it's not a bad injury, but it's, you know, like I'm sure everyone here is like, oh, my wrist is acting up slightly, or I feel a hint of tendonitis coming on, so I can do a small bit of training, but I don't want to do too much. And then it's like, well, I'd really like to do an hour or 2 hour training session and really get into it, but then you can't get into it. Yeah, even my
I had that a lot too.
Yeah, And even myself, like, I don't know if people know, like, destroyed my wrist a few years ago. And it's like, I'm kind of, we've been doing a lot of changes behind the scenes and other stuff changes. I'm like, I'm not going to say it's stressful. Well, that's the thing. Outwardly, if I say on paper and go, oh, we've done this, this, and this, it's not stressful. But my old wrist injury has flared up. And I was like, it's been acting up. And like, it's as good as it's ever going to get in terms of thing, but it's just like, it's basically replicating the pain pattern I had when I was like broken and unable to move properly. I'm just like, it's interesting because like I know, okay, yes, it's basically this indicator that like there's a higher level of subconscious stress going on than I was possibly willing to admit to myself or possibly even able to recognize. But then I have like the barometer of like, oh, why is the wrist swollen? Why is it not, when I load it, is it just feeling weird?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, interesting. Or everything's interesting, obviously, but
I think that like it's cool. It's a cool topic. I start relating it immediately to the anthropology stuff that I've just been like going through the last couple of days, and there is a lot of this. Just in the anthropology course, we were talking about like kind of the biomedical paradigm and like the anthropological kind of more phenomenological view of the body as a whole, both interacting with the outside world, but also kind of on the inside, and how like basically this classical, very simple concept that everything in the end matters. And if you take like he was talking about how in, for example, medical or a lot of kind of medical research, you basically you develop a cell culture in a laboratory, and you expose it to certain stressors or chemicals and whatnot, and then you see the results. But then you find that if you're actually doing this in the body, you either cannot track it, or the effects are completely different, because if you add another chemical or another stressor, or like you cannot control for all the variables. And I think with training as well, and I thought about a lot about this stuff, because it's so easy to think about training. It's just like muscles. It's just, but my muscles feel fresh. Like, why can't I do the thing or all that? And I also had like definitely the worst training year of my life through COVID. And for me, just like the idea, like just the social isolation, like not having people to do it with. Like I've talked about this before, but I'd go to training, like the context, everything would feel the same, except I'd be alone. I just come in and I just like you said, I cannot get into it. Like I cannot find the bother to do. Like I cannot, like there was as if there was kind of a, how to say, like chemical is the best explain, like a best word I can put on it, as if there was like a kind of is something in my chemical composition that just there was no drive, there was no will, no want, or just that kind of drive is the best word. No drive to just bother doing it. And particularly like if it didn't go really well or felt really fresh from the start, like the bar from just like, fuck it, like it was so much lower. And this is something that like the anthropologist, like, because he has worked a lot with kind of neuroanthropology and so on, and he's very into these kind of things where like the entire context, the entire kind of being of the body, like you can't, there is no Descartesian divide. Like there isn't just a brain in a body. Like all of these things function as like an extremely complex, intimate unit, and you can never know kind of like the back and the forth exactly of what causes it. But of course, like you say, a stressor is a stressor, and like a stressor is at least easier to, or in many cases, easier to identify, and where that stressor kind of expresses can be in such different ways. And it's funny, just again, like an example from anthropology with stuff like demon possession and exorcism and stuff like that's practiced in many cultures, that has kind of a large a societal function, and is kind of integrated in the entire culture and the entire kind of understanding of being. And that is then the expression of various symptoms, whereas those those symptoms would be something else in a different context, but like the stressors might be the same, but they express over in something that to us sitting here sounds very, very far out of our sphere. But like, if that can happen, why can't it be so that like you're experiencing just having to deal with loads of shit, and okay, suddenly your wrist is hurting? Like, it's not that far-fetched really, since like, if we think about the body as this extremely complex organism, which we cannot always kind of just dissect the problems and say that, oh yeah, the cause and effect is exactly this, which you can sometimes, but not always.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, even speaking from training terms, is like, if you take the training sort of system a lot of athletes are under, their whole life is basically, say at high levels, is basically particularly say Olympic kind of athletics and that kind of style of thing. It's like the person's life is very regulated towards training. So then you can measure basically a direct response from like, this athlete is X, they do Y training, we get Y response, because our nutrition is covered, house is covered, in a training camp situation, all the stuff. And you see there's a lot, say, with the Russian research and the Russian strength training stuff. It's all very good, but it's all very statistic based and all very, monitoring statistics, kind of load tolerance, all this. And then you get someone, say, Smolov, the squat program, and you give that to a normal person who's working a normal job. There's Smolov, for those who don't know, is one of these classic squat routines where you squat an ungodly amount at certain percentages. And it's very like, this day you will do 6 sets of 2 at 85%, and next day you will do 7 sets of 1 at blah, this kind of thing. And, there's calculators online will tell you. But then for an athlete who's following that program in a very controlled environment, they can follow the numbers exactly. Whereas a normal person will go in and they go, oh, I should do 85% today, and 85% just smokes them, and they can't get the bar up. And then it's like, oh, catastrophe struck, I can't follow the program, more stressor on top of it. And it's, it's a very intense program, these kind of things. And it's this kind of, it's interesting where it's like, oh, well, you got a normal job, you just got shouted at your boss because some project was falling behind, and, you're going to be late at home, you don't get to see the kids or whatever. And all these kind of, these stressors, or these soft stressors, I suppose, or non-direct stressors in terms of what you're looking at, I don't know, they add up. And it's just interesting, that kind of thing of like, oh, we have this ideal. It's kind of like the circus school thing. We put people into the meat grinder of circus school for 3 years, and basically your whole life is geared towards this, is all you do, and you get amazing results, and everyone can do anything. But then suddenly you're cast out into the wild world of like real life and working and jobs and touring and everything. And you try to follow a training like, I say most people, when they, or maybe not most, but most of the big injuries I know from circus performers have happened like in the 1 to 2 years after circus school, when they're possibly doing less training, because let's face it, everyone drops the stuff they don't like to do. So there's probably less total stuff, like no one's really doing an hour and a half dance themselves 3 or 4 days a week and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then, so obviously there might be more training volume, but then suddenly there's a lot more like self-promotion, jobs, all these kind of things that add up. And then they're getting injured in ways that, like, hold on, you shouldn't really have gotten injured if you look at the total training, but there's more stuff gone on top of it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's also, since, I mean, the more that they're learning about the body, like and particularly training, I mean, the muscles are there, but like it's fired by a nervous system and a brain which exists within a particular like neurochemicals and a soup of like exact chemical composition, and differences there we cannot really control for, but they will definitely be significant. And I mean, like, just levels of general stress like matters loads. And I think it's interesting what you said, that like loads of people, including myself, use training and like it's kind of a coping thing. It's kind of a relaxing meditation, dealing with yourself, cleansing ritual almost of daily stress. And then but you are also you are taxing your body as you're doing this. You're putting your body into a state where it needs to repair and recover from it, both on a nervous system and a muscular system level. And yeah, it can be very hard to know like when it works and when it doesn't, and like why. I mean, best period of training I've had in my entire life, I was feeling like absolute garbage in other respects, but I was just I was murdering it when it came to handstand and training. Everything worked. And it's also kind of counterintuitive, because like on that plane, like I know people who are like, oh yeah, but you just need to feel good and relax and then everything comes. No, like if it was so, like I feel great now, like in many respects, but I'm like light years away from what I was able to do in the period where like, yeah, it was darkness, and but I was epic. So it's certainly not consistent, but there are definitely patterns that can be seen. And I mean, it makes sense. You have two kids at home, you work a lot, and you try to do your one arm chin training and your one arm handstand learning at the same time. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
And I'm always happy when I have, like, I was coaching this guy who has two kids, lots of work, lots to do, and he's just like doesn't bite over too big of an apple. He's just like, yeah, you know, I can train twice a week. I can do handstands twice a week. I'm like, okay, you think it's cool to do a coaching period with that a few times? Yeah, I want to do that, and I want to put good work in on those 2 days. And lo and behold, he got pretty good results because he did some stuff, and he did that when he had the time, because the amount of other stressors in his life were too high for more. I mean, he could probably have forced himself to 4, but it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's can be really tricky to know how to balance those things. And I think it's definitely one that is where it's very difficult to make any kind of, or to deduct any general principles that you should follow. Like there are some very general ones, but like people's situations are so different in this, so that like it's something that you in one sense need to handle on kind of a one, or like on a case basis in sense.
Yeah, it's definitely
what people are doing.
Yeah, I can think of there's one guy who we train on the M3 program, the flexibility thing we do, and we've got 2 coaches who work under me on that one, Isaac and Nick, and we've adopted one guy. He's our mascot, because if we can get him bendy, and he's been getting really good, slow, steady results. He's got a difficult, like his home situation is slightly difficult. He gets quite stressed, other stuff. And a huge amount of the training we do with him is just like literally just managing, like, you know, we've had him on, you know, sometimes he's capable for 3 days a week. Sometimes, sometimes we spot like, okay, things aren't working. You know, you're doing 1 day a week for next month. That's it. And other times, like, yeah, one of the times like Nick stepped in, it's just like, Gordon, here's your program for a week is to eat ice cream every day. Just take a break. That's it. Just not do anything. And, this is like factoring in the normal deloads and other stuff we do as well. It's just like, okay, it's just nothing's going to work now. There's too much going on for you personally. Take a break. And but he's our mascot because he just slowly, this is the thing, he puts the work in and he's consistent with whatever training we give him, and it's slowly just working. So we just like, for us, it's like, if we can make this man bend, we can bend anyone. But it is like whereas if you look on like time wise, he could probably manage 3 or 4 sessions a week easy. But yeah, in terms of everything going on, it's always this kind of soft stressors and soft everything really. But it's good. Trying to think where we're going.
It's been interesting for me to like, now things have started to go better. Like it's also hilarious. Like there's one stressor in terms of this that happens every year, of course, and that's winter here in Scandinavia. I often forget that it's like, or in February it's sad face, and I usually forget that it's like, oh yeah, I just didn't see the sun for like 300 years. Maybe that has something to do with it. And the sun comes back, and you're like, oh fuck yeah, it's not that bad. Like you don't need to be a complete nihilist. Right, yeah.
I've got some vitamin D in my system. It's amazing.
It's
again.
Actually cool. So sometimes
like, it's not dark for like 22 hours a day.
It's and thank God for being in Turkey for that. Like, it's super warm, and yeah, just training when it's warm too. What a dang experience! You don't need to warm up for 700 years. Don't go around with like frozen bones all day. Glorious. I mean, on the other hand, we have warm houses in Scandinavia, so shouldn't complain too much. But yeah, there's just something about like the winter half year that there isn't something. It's fucking dark and cold. There's not nothing else. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And it bites you in the
Yeah,
soul.
you just need to get into like more saunas. This is
Yeah, wish I had the sauna.
like my personal goal this year is to build a sauna. I've been like looking into how to do it. So I'm stuck halfway between. It's kind of done some interesting research as well that I will tell people about. But we don't really have a sauna culture in Ireland, which is a bit shit. But you know, you think, oh, with our shitty climate, it would be perfect for it, like the rest of Northern Europe, like Germany in particular, and Finland, Sweden, obviously as well. But we don't. Whereas I was looking into it, and it turned out we used to have one. We used to have like these stone huts where you'd like small sort of stone enclosed space where people basically do like basically like a sweat lodge kind of thing. Either build a big fire in the middle or heat stones up and then put it in to heat it. Then you'd crawl into your sweat lodge, and it was used as a health thing, a cure thing. So it was kind of interesting to find there was a culture of it. Probably got stamped out because people were naked and nudity was terrible and had to be oppressed. So probably it was probably related to some of the older cultures here as well. So my goal is to bring this back, and I'm kind of looking how to build either something that's similar to like, well, you'd equivalent of a sweat lodge where you'd basically have a big tent and then get some stones. And then part of me is just thinking like, oh, maybe I'll just build a sauna. It's all very, it's one of those big DIY projects. But
yeah, I don't know how hard it is to build a sauna. I don't really know enough. I mean, I guess isolation, making it like fire safe enough, and having the right type of oven in there.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those.
You should definitely choose one that's like with firewood, though. That is just like the authentic experience.
Yeah, I've been looking at. There's a few you can buy of. This is the thing: you could buy it or you could weld it. And I know how to weld, and I'm like, that's the kind of thing. There's always these things that goes into like, I always do DIY projects, or my method of doing these things, if people know, I do a lot of kind of sort of weird craft things, is like I go, there's something I want, and then I go like, oh, well, what's the cost of buying it? Okay. And what's the cost of buying the tools and the material to build it? And is it less? And can I factor in, do I have the time? And if I have the thing, I'll build it and make it. So I'm kind of looking like weighing up like, oh, I could buy the oven, or I could just buy a welding machine and some angle grinder. Like, let's face it, power tools are toys this day.
Yes.
Do it that way.
I want lots of power tools. That's my big takeaway since I was in Turkey. I want a fucking I mainly want, like, there is this big ass saw that Till had there. Till is the guy that runs TADAH. Don't know what it's called in English, but it's basically kind of a stationary saw that you put down, and like it's a circle saw, and you pull it out, and you kind of chop it down and roll it across the wood, and it's super powerful, and you can angle it and do all sorts of shit with it, and it's just super reliable, really easy to cut perfectly with, and it's just fucking glorious. I have nowhere to have it, so I mean, if you don't have a shed or anything, it's like, it's not something that you can just use inside, because your place will be just sawdust fucked everywhere. But yeah, it was so much fun working with that, and like angle grinders, and it was cool when we were laying some roof, where you just like blow torching the roof and stuff to be able to glue it on. Yeah, like being in Turkey and like working that stuff was just like mind blowing in the sense of, it's just very basic skills. I mean, I didn't do anything complex, but just getting into how to construct things yourself is just extremely satisfying in a way that like I basically, I didn't know that I missed it until I did more. It's just like, oh shit, yeah, this stuff I need to fucking get into. Just like so satisfying to be able to build shit yourself. So when I move apartments, I'm planning, like, I'm anyway gonna get a bunch of power tools, and I have some, so I'm just gonna construct a bunch of like just the basic furniture, like shelves and tables and stuff like that. I'm just gonna build myself. Because I mean, it is extremely satisfying to just make a thing yourself. They're like, even if it's simple, it's super fun to to go through kind of the steps. And then I
Yeah.
mean, if you don't know something, like, hey, we have fucking YouTube nowadays. Like, there's even like really advanced tutorials and doing like almost whatever that's for free on there. So
Yeah.
like, if you have a bit of kind of just like, if you have a drive to do something, the know-how is all out there. And I think for me, like it's I've never really had that much interest in those things, and it's very easy to, like, in terms of those things, since it's easy to just pay someone to do it,
Yeah.
or buy something finished, and then you kind of like, you have no incentive really to get into making stuff yourself. And that was something that, like, I really discovered a much higher level of appreciation for being at TADAH, since I think I was part of making these things and seeing, okay, this guy just decided to fucking build 7 houses, and he did most of it himself. And of course, like, that is on the extreme side, on the very, very experienced side, but like,
You
it
have to start
means that,
somewhere.
yeah, if you, yeah, exactly, you can make shit if you shit someday as well. Much more
Yeah.
interesting than
I
just
think I
like,
should just get you over and you can build my sauna for me.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think,
I love, like, I mean, we should, yeah, we should, I'll come sometime, and then we just fucking build a sauna. I'm
yeah.
totally up for it.
Yeah, it's definitely
Buy some
I
fucking,
think there's one of the things that I suppose missing is a sense of completion a lot of the times in the
yeah,
training we do, particularly because, like, yeah, it's goal, but the problem is, like, you have a goal, but then there's always a new goal, particularly handstands and other stuff. I remember actually when I was working as a personal trainer in London, I read some studies on stress in the city in London, or job dissatisfaction. It was either job dissatisfaction or other stuff along this line, where one of the big takeaways was all these people were like very high. They're looking at high performing people, why they were stopping working, because a lot of them would. There's a kind of rule in the city of, like, if you haven't made your money in 7 years, just quit, or most people quit
mm,
anyway. And obviously, like, the workload these people are on was exceptional, like 80, 70, 80 hour weeks, that kind of thing. But one of the
mm,
things that was actually causing the bigger stress, obviously you could argue the workload as well, but there was no sense of completion. That you'd have like an analyst or a quant, they'd do one thing, they'd finish the project, then the next project would always be lined up or already working, and there was no, or it'd be like these big, huge financial companies, whereas, like, you're doing a very small part of a project, but the project never ends because you hand off your bit and then you just got basically the same thing to do again and again, or a slightly different version of it.
mm.
And then it's like, oh, but why? There was no ending. And it's one of the things that while they're looking at, like, different types of team building exercises and which ones work, which ones are the sort of the better kind of things. 'Cause obviously team building and bringing your team out and doing social stuff and mandatory socializing, always fun. But which were the ones that were giving the best bang for buck? And it was the ones where, like, people were doing like woodwork projects or cookery school or stuff like this, where they would come in and they'd go in, they'd start with something they didn't know, or start with something thing, and they go, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make this today. You make it, and then it's done.
Yeah,
And that, you can see that a lot in training as well. Because, like, oh, I want to get my handstand, and 10-second handstand was my goal. 10 seconds, oh, brilliant. 12 seconds, 15. It's just never ending in some ways, or it's never. There's no thing that you look at the end and go, there's my table.
yeah.
Here's my cake. And that can be missing, that sense of completion, and that, like, it's a physical completion as well, not just a mental completion.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's that. I mean, that is a lot of the, isn't that a lot of the, what's it called? The foundation of the kind of the alienation concept in general, that you're just like removed from the process, in the sense that, like, you're just fulfilling a task where you're not really uh, seeing the direct results, or like feeling that you're like intimately connected to what's happening. I mean, in that sense, like, yes, it's good with kind of self-cultivating stuff as handstands or training, because at least
Yeah.
you're deciding to go towards a goal yourself. But yeah, like, in terms of that kind of completion of thing, I think there's a very how to say, yeah, I don't like the word natural that much, but I do think there is kind of we have a propensity towards creating and subsequently finishing a thing.
Yeah.
So
That'd be
that,
kind of
like, you're,
interesting anthropology topic is is that creating and finishing, is it a cultural bias we have from our current culture, or is it a thing that exists in even pre-civilization cultures?
That is a very interesting topic, really. Yeah, I'm actually going to ask Alex, our lecturer, about that, because
Maybe we should get him on the
I'm sure
podcast.
Actually we should. He's fucking interesting. I'll ask him if he wants to.
Yeah, that'd be
because
interesting.
totally we should, because he did he has been working a lot with parkour communities. Like that's
cool.
what he used to do. He used to be very into parkour, and like he's really into physical culture and all that shit. Yeah, I'll totally ask him about that.
Yeah, no, let's get him on.
He's super. Yeah. He will definitely join the show, and yeah, he has so much interesting stuff to say, and he's very communicative and very well formulated and informed about a lot of these things. And yeah, like he also knows like a shit ton when it comes to kind of evolutionary response to nutrition, diet, and changes in like in bone structures and whatnot, depending on the ecologies where humans have lived and blah 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 blah. So he's very into these kind of things. Yeah, that's actually a great idea. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. We're gonna get a fucking anthropologist onto the cast. I'm at least going to ask him if he wants to.
Yeah, we're gonna harass him until he wants to do our podcast. Yeah. Do our podcast.
Wouldn't be surprised.
You know, we'll just live stream his lectures and pretend he's here. Pose questions.
I think he would be happy to as well. I mean, that would be good for his courses too. I mean, probably some people in our listening circle that would be interested in listening to what he has to say. So yeah.
Right. I'm going to take this break point as a point to wrap up.
Yes. That was a lot of things.
Good bit of rambling there, I think. Other than that, we'll be back next week as usual with more handstand focused topics. Other than that, if there's anything we kind of talked about in this podcast you'd like us to go into more depth on, just let us know. Send us your questions or comments or whatever to @Handstand Factory on Instagram, and we will take note of them and maybe go over them again. Or if you have any anthropology questions for handstands, let's just pretend he's going to be on the podcast already. You can send them in. We can have some things you might be interested in hearing about. Other than that, I've been Emmet Lewis, and I'm here with Mikael.
Cheers.
The Handstandcast is brought to you by Handstand Factory and is produced by Motion Impulse. Thanks for tuning in. You can find a full transcript of each episode along with the show notes and any relevant references on handstandfactory.com/podcast. Thanks to Isaac for editing and Jordan for transcriptions. Music by Daniel Horwath. If you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee on buymeacoffee.com or consider starting one of our Handstand Factory online programs. Links are in the show notes.